Hey everybody, I'm William Cunningham of My Hope in Marriage. I hope you are well. My Hope in Marriage is designed to what it's about is to help you to forge a happy and fulfilling marriage, and also a happy and fulfilling life. We're online at www.myhopeinmarriage.com. Now, on the website, you will find articles and, of course, links where you can watch videos that I have and so forth. And they're all designed to give you resources, give you information that you can use as you work on building a fulfilling and happy marriage yourself. Okay, so visit the website and watch the videos. And if you like the video, I would appreciate a like. If you're looking at this on YouTube, and above all, please feel free to send me your questions or your comments. I really, really, really appreciate those. Okay. All right. Well, today in this video, anyway, what I'm going to do is talk about a topic that's kind of a reality booster, a reality check, because the fact is that there are many marriages that do not end up happy. A couple get married and they have these dreams and expectations, aspirations of this happy and fulfilling marriage relationship. But then over time, things start happening and you find yourself not having this happy, fulfilling marriage relationship. You find yourself no longer embracing intimate moments with each other. You find yourself not doing the things that you used to do, intimately when you were, let's say, dating, or especially at the beginning of the marriage, after the wedding day. You had all the pomp and circumstance, or if you just went to the justice or whatever. After that, you went through what's called the honeymoon phase of the relationship. Everything's new. You're holding hands in a grocery store, so forth and so on. But then there comes a day comes when you look around your surroundings, and it's just not what you expected. It's not what you liked. It's not what you wanted. You thought you would have this happy marriage, but then all of a sudden, well, it's not all of a sudden, after so many years or after a period of time, you realize that things aren't good. And you may wonder, what happened, what can I do, and things like that. But you may try at that point, or even before then, you may be trying to spice things up, do things that will help solidify the intimate relationship, especially your emotional connection. You do all those things. But reality sets in and you realize that your spouse doesn't seem to have the same commitment, all right, for whatever reason. They don't seem to be trying to build a marriage that you're trying to build. And when I say you're trying to build, you're trying to build a good marriage. You're trying to build a happy marriage. And it seems like they're not interested. And over a period of time, you may find yourself becoming roommates. And that is extremely bad for the marriage relationship. You no longer see your wife, a guy may no longer see his wife as that one in a million, that special one for me, or the one. You no longer see your husband as the knight in shining armor, my hero, my rescuer, or whatever. All right, my hero. You don't see him like that. You see him as the drunk, or the the schoolboy or just somebody who just doesn't care or whatnot. You see her as the bag lady or, the lady just rollers in her hair surrounded by a bunch of kids. You don't see a romantic partner anymore over a period of time. What happened? I have an ebook that I wrote called, What Happens to Love and Marriage. I recommend you get that because I go into a lot of details about what happens to love and marriage. And when I'm talking about love, romantic love specifically, there are two types of, quote, love in the relationship. One is commitment and one is that emotional, romantic love. And the romantic love is the one that wanes first. It's important to realize and remember, and I tell people this all the time, remember, your spouse is human. And they're going to respond to the things that go on with them on their jobs, in the street, wherever. And they're going to respond to you in the household. What are you doing to forge ahead a happy marriage? What are you doing to meet the needs of your spouse? Not trying to make them happy or her happy, because you can't. No one can make you happy except you. You can't make your spouse do anything. Okay, you can influence them, not manipulate. You don't want to go as far as manipulating, but you can influence them because we humans respond to how people treat us, right? We respond to that. And that gets factored into how I relate to you. Are you good to me? Now, if you're not good to me, then I'm going to respond a certain way. If you are consistently good to me, I'm going to respond another way. The same is true with your spouse. All right. So that love and marriage wanes, and that's why it's so important for you to continue to work at it. You do that with everything else. If you want a promotion on your job, or you want to excel on your job, or if you want to, ensure that you give your employer value, you're a valuable component of the company, what do? I don't know. You may take courses, continue to learn, get better at whatever it is you're doing. You want to be a good engineer or a good doctor, a good plumber, whatever. You learn and you practice and you get better at it. Okay, you become the expert, let's just say. But how many people do that for the marriage? How many people actually learn about marriage? Learn about the dynamics of a couple in marriage. And I'm talking specifically about a heterosexual marriage because I don't know, that's all I know. Okay, so who does that? Have you done it? Have you actually studied marriage, learned about marriage, learned about, women and their perspective and men and their perspective? Have you learned about the dynamics in marriages, the phases of a marriage, and so forth and so on? Have you gone to, let's say, marriage forums and just look at the issues that people have and perhaps what they've done about it? See, that's the thing. We neglect a marriage, and you can't do that and expect to have a happy and fulfilling one. So that's very important. So what happens is you don't nurture this marriage, just like if you would leave your lawn unattended, all right? Then it would start to grow crazy and it was just a total mess after a while. The same with your marriage, all right? What happens to love and marriage is that it wanes because you don't keep the fire burning. And what's even worse than that is when one tries to keep the fire burning, when one tries to set a bonfire and the other one just doesn't seem to care about the relationship. That's a worse situation. Ignorance is a silent killer of the marriage. All right? It's important to realize that. What are you doing to help your marriage grow? Now, ideally, you would love for your spouse to be with you, perhaps watching this video, reading marriage books together, and so forth and so on. But in reality, that probably doesn't happen. It's usually one person who's trying to get it done. It's one person who has that dream, and they're trying to forge ahead to a happy marriage. And their spouse just seems to be, on a different planet in that respect. They don't seem to care. All right. Now, you wake up one day and you realize, I don't love my spouse anymore. I don't love my wife anymore. I don't love my husband anymore. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about the romantic. You don't have that romantic feeling that you used to have because of the things that you've been going through over the years. They have affected you. All right. They've affected how you feel about your spouse. The love bank. All right. So that's important to understand that if you don't nurture, both husband and wife don't nurture, one can fall out of love. And then you really have a problem if both, that's why it's so important to communicate in your marriage, to really communicate, have honest, open communications and respectful communications with your spouse. Your marriage should be a safe place to be honest. No angry outbursts, no, just defending yourself or just fighting back or retaliating. Take what's being said and discuss it, and if it's real, it's real. You can deal with it. If it's not, oh, it was a misunderstanding, so forth and so on. All right. But it's easy for a marriage to get to a point where you're no longer in love. You become roommates. It becomes no different than you sharing an apartment with someone just, for financial benefit. You split the cost of the apartment. And in a marriage, you can become roommates where, you both have a source of income and you both come together and the bills are paid, the kids are taken care of, there's food on the table, heat and air conditioning or whatever. But you have no intimate connection with each other. You're just, employees in Household Incorporated. You're just roommates. And that's the environment for love to wane. You don't need to have an intimate relationship with the roommate. You just have to have like a business relationship or something, an agreement. All right. So it's important to realize that love will wane if the conditions of the relationship are conducive to that end. If you don't nurture your emotional connection with each other, then that emotional connection is going to die. Okay? It's like anything else. You have to work at it. Not just go into it if I feel like it. It's not about what you feel like. Sometimes you'll feel like it, and sometimes you won't. All right? But the important thing is to do what is necessary for the advancement of the relationship. That's what's important, whether you feel like it or not. And that doesn't mean that, every time you don't feel like it, you still do it. No, sometimes you're just tired or you may really have a headache, if you know what I mean. But the bottom line is you can't do things merely out of feelings. Sometimes I remember a long time ago, I attended a men's fellowship or a men's conference. Yes, a men's conference held by Miles Monroe at a church I was attending. And one of the things I remember him saying is that sometimes in a relationship, in a marriage, you have to do things out of knowledge. In other words, you have to do things not because you want to do it or you feel like doing it, but you do it because you know that it's the best or it's good for the relationship. All right? Okay. Now, over time, romantic love dies if you do not nurture it. It will die. The relationship will die. You have to do what is necessary to uphold the relationship. And sometimes you may not feel like doing whatever it is you need to do. Your wife comes to you, she wants a hug and a kiss, and maybe you're not in the mood for that. All right, maybe you have your romantic love for her has waned to the point getting a hug from her is just, sickening, or it's just, something that you just don't like doing. Like, okay, so, but you do it anyway. But it's important to understand that love died over time. And it's going to have its consequences. It's going to have its effects on marriage. You're going to avoid doing things that you used to do when you were together emotionally. You're not going to caress her and touch her and so forth, and she's not going to do the same as well, because that romance have waned. And when the romance goes, it's just function. You have a functional relationship. You're roommates. But that love, that romantic love, will die if not nurtured. All right? You neglect your spouse, all right? Then that's going to build an environment where emotional connection is going to go. So you really need to pay attention and not just blame your spouse, but just consider, have I done anything to contribute to this mess? Or even if you haven't necessarily contributed to it, you can ask yourself, is there anything that I can do to help this get better? Ideally, husband and wife will be working together, but realistically, that probably won't happen. It usually starts with one person doing something, and that could influence the spouse. All right? Okay. Just remember, your spouse is human, so they're responding to you. They may be responding to you. Sometimes people get married for ulterior motives. Unfortunately, that's the case. So they may never be interested in bonding with you. They just wanted what you had to offer. He offers an income. He offers some protection. He offers, home maintenance and lawn care. So I'll marry him. She can cook. She can clean my house while I go off and have fun. Sometimes people get married for reasons like that. And unfortunately, unless they change their attitude, change their mindset, that marriage is going to have a tough time getting better. Okay? Now, as long as a marriage stays in a bad state, you're going to develop a sick heart. The Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. So the more you desire this wonderful relationship, and the more it doesn't happen, the sicker your heart gets. And then that can bring on all kinds of problems for the marriage, as resentment grows, anger grows, frustration, stress, and so forth and so on. Then you can start being hostile to your wife or your husband, or both of you start being hostile to each other because your heart becomes sick. It's not that you really hate the guy or hate her, or, you're just hating what they've been doing to you. Now, of course, you have been communicating, right? But even if you have been communicating, there are times when your spouse just doesn't get it, all right? He or she does not get the fact that you're having a problem. This is really hurting you. And unless they can first empathize and then discuss it and do something about it, you're going to keep having the same problem. Okay? And then when you become roommates, you start living apart together. In other words, you're in the same house, but you have separate lives. Yeah, the bills get paid, food's on the table. All right, the house may be clean, depending on who cleans it. All right, whatever. In other words, the household functions, but there's no intimate, emotional connection. And of course, in most cases, there's no sex. All right, because sex is how a guy emotionally connects with his wife. All right, and of course, a woman wants to be emotionally connected to her husband, but she tends to want to be emotionally connected before she's open to sex, and he wants to connect through sex. So you got a little issue there. All right, so somebody's got to break the boundary and do what is necessary to influence the other. To provide, to establish that emotional connection so that can flow. That's very important in a marriage. In other words, otherwise, why be married if you're not going to have an emotional, intimate connection? Why get married? And a lot of people are asking that. Why should I get married? With the whole thing with the modern women these days, from the man's perspective. All right. But if that emotional connection is just neglected for years and sometimes decades, then you're going to be living apart together. You're going to be in the same house, but separate. You're going to be living separate lives. All right. So you got to guard against that. You have to really, really guard against that. And then it's exacerbated in like time, like right now, at the recording of this video, it's Christmas time. Today is what, the 17th of December. Now, let's say you don't have a really good relationship with your spouse, but now it's Christmas time. Okay, I'm obligated to get a gift. I got to pretend like, like I want to give you a gift. No, it's that exacerbates the whole situation that you're in. If you're in a marriage where there's very little to no emotional connection. Now I got to play, like we're all happy and so forth, and go get you a gift. I'm obligated, and that even makes it tougher. But also could be an opportunity to maybe spark something. But then you might be saying to yourself, look, I've been trying that for 20 years. Doesn't spark anything. All right? It's like trying to light a match underwater. You know what I'm saying? So living apart together is like roommate zone exponential. And that's a position where things are really, really bad. And the thing there is that it can get to a point where it's just routine and you've accepted it. And then the whole desire for intimacy goes away. But deep down in your heart, you want that. A guy may say, well, I you know what, I don't even want to be bothered with her. But deep down inside, when you see her sometimes, getting dressed in the morning, coming out of the shower, you want, all right? And that just makes your heart sicker, all right? Okay, let me move on. Don't give up so fast. Defer giving up, all right? Don't be quick to give up. People can change. Your marriage can change. Will it change? Well, nobody can guarantee that. You can try all you want to induce change, but if your spouse really isn't interested, probably will not change. However, your spouse may have an epiphany, may get enlightened or whatever the case, or realize that, hey, there is a problem. He or she may hear something, or someone may tell them something that gets them to start thinking, I need to do something specifically for my marriage, and not just take my marriage or take my spouse, my husband or my wife for granted. I need to step up and do what I need to do for the relationship. I need to help meet the needs of my husband. And my husband needs to meet, let me say it this way. I need to meet the needs of my wife. A husband needs to start thinking about meeting the needs of his wife. And a wife needs to start thinking about meeting the needs of her husband. All right? And together you're meeting each other's needs, you're submitting to each other, you're going for each other, and that helps the relationship grow. And then that becomes the norm. And that becomes the way that the relationship goes. All right? So don't give up, because things can change. All right? Now, of course, realistically, you may have a limit to how long you want to wait for that change to happen. All right? But that's up to you. I'm not going to go into that. You may have decided in your mind that divorce is not an option. Maybe separation for a while. Some counselors do recommend that in some cases, but you decided that you're going to stay. So don't give up so fast, because you may be missing an opportunity to make things better and to enjoy that happy marriage life that you wanted. Your spouse may not be interested or not seem to be interested now, but that possible it could turn around. All right. In the meantime, you have to cope. And I tell people this all the time. Look, don't neglect your own fulfillment, your own happiness. Whether your spouse is there or not, you make sure you're happy. Besides, you're the only one that can make you happy anyway. It is not your spouse's job to make you happy, nor responsibility. It is not your spouse's job to make you happy. So don't expect them to make you happy. They're a human being. Make yourself happy. Learn to cope. If you have a bad marriage, if you're in this bad marriage, learn to cope. Cope with it. Coping mechanism. Good coping mechanism. For example, you may say, well, I can find another woman. Well, that gets into adultery, that gets into infidelity, which has its own set of consequences, which can make things much worse. All right. But you decide how you're going to cope, make moral and so forth and so on. You know what I mean? But just do that and just keep trying until you reach your absolute limit, not too fast, but just recognize those signs in your relationship that, hey, I'm a roommate and I don't want to be a roommate. Maybe you need to be some enlightening, have some enlightening. Now, it takes two to tangle, but one to get it started. You know, it takes two, the husband and wife together, to make a marriage work, to make a marriage fulfilling. But you only need one to get on that path to help it get towards that happy state. All right. All right. That's what I wanted to bring to you today. The fact that marriages, love wanes in a marriage. You have to nurture it. If you don't, you're going to have these bad effects, where you might want to give up. You find yourself, you don't feel about your spouse the way you used to. Don't give up. Don't worry about your feelings so much. Feelings are fickle anyway. You do what you have to do to make things right. If you haven't been, then start. If you have been, then keep trying. Maybe a little different approach. Maybe get some professional or get some help from someone else to step in. Maybe not mediate, but provide some information that you can use. Have that talk with your spouse. Communicate safely, respectfully, honestly, and work out things together. All right? Okay. That ends the lesson. Well, I'm William Cunningham of My Hope in Marriage. I pray that this has been helpful to you. If it has, I appreciate it. If you're watching YouTube, give me a like. If you haven't subscribed and you like to see more videos like this and get notified when they come out, go ahead and subscribe. But most of all, use the resources. If you have a question, ask the question. If you have a comment, I really would love to hear from you. And I try to respond to every comment I can. It's daunting sometimes, but I try to respond to every comment, even if it's just a 1-2 word response. Yep, I believe you, or that's normal. Okay? All right. Well, God bless you. Until next time, you know it. Be blessed.